My name is Welcome to the Bearer of Bad News. I'm your host, Lore Bear, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, so I won't. This is your weekly recap of positive news stories from around the world. Articles included in this broadcast were originally published from March 22nd to 28th, 2026. The stories in this episode are sourced from various news outlets and publications. Bearer of Bad News does not conduct independent fact-checking or verification of these stories. Listeners are encouraged to review original sources for accuracy and complete context. We're not responsible for the accuracy or content of third-party reporting, which is a fancy way of saying, I read it, I didn't report it. And here are this week's stories. Articles March 22nd to 28th, 2026. He was arrested while repainting Dallas rainbow crosswalks. He'd do it all again. From dallasnews.com. It was already dark when Mason Whiteside finished his workday at a Deep Ellum brewery. By the time he was done cleaning and closing up, it was nearly midnight, but there was another job to do. Whiteside, 25, called a Waymo to take him to Oak Lawn, where he'd lugged a backpack full of chalk and spray paint, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Does anyone want to color with me? Whiteside asked as people walked by. No one stopped. He didn't need them to. For the course of 3.5 hours, Whiteside alone repainted more than a dozen crosswalks, what he considered a vibrant act of defiance less than 24 hours after the city began stripping roads of their color. Dallas is among several Texas cities complying with a state directive to remove political ideologies from public roadways. I wasn't hurting anybody, Whiteside, who is queer, told the Dallas Morning News Tuesday. I didn't damage anything. I literally just put back the same things that had been there. Shortly before 3:30 a.m., Whiteside was painting near the intersection of Cedar Springs Road and Knight Street when two police officers walked over. Whiteside recalled a series of exchanges that went like this. Hey buddy, what are you doing? One of the officers asked. What does it look like I'm doing? Whiteside replied. He was then asked if he realized that what he was doing was a crime. Am I under arrest? No, both officers said. So Whiteside told them he was leaving, that it was his right, but said the officers wouldn't let him go. You just told me I'm not under arrest, Whiteside said. Well, you are now. Police officials told the news in an email that Whiteside was detained for unrelated outstanding warrants. According to Whiteside, he was only informed of a speeding ticket and failure to appear in court out of Farmers Branch, an incident from more than 3 years ago. Whiteside was taken Tuesday to a Dallas County jail, then to the city's marshal's office, finally to Farmers Branch, he said, where he paid $972 to be released. He left at 10:35 a.m. Tuesday afternoon, Whiteside tried to distract himself. He worked in his garden, tending to his peonies. It was a feeble effort. He thought about why he moved to Dallas in the first place. It was 2023, and he had had enough of Amarillo. His small-minded hometown, he said. He wanted to start over, to grow up, to find some bigger dreams. This isn't the Dallas that I came to love, Whiteside said. And how much longer until it's not just crosswalks? Until they take our spaces, our actual spaces. There are a series of dominoes that could fall. He's disappointed, angry, scared even. But he's not discouraged. Every single time they try to take it away, he said, I'm going to put it right back. Our next article is the U.S. largest offshore wind farm just produced its first power from electrek.co. Dominion Energy's Coastal Virginia offshore wind CVOW project, which will be the U.S.'s largest wind farm when it's complete, has sent its first power to the grid. Dominion CEO Robert Blue confirmed the milestone on LinkedIn, writing that the wind farm had delivered its first power right on schedule. The 2.6 gigawatt CVOW, 28 miles off Virginia Beach and under construction since 2024, is about 70% complete, with 176 monopiles installed. 2 Siemens Gamesa 14 megawatt wind turbines have been installed, and power is currently being generated from one of them. The Charybdis, the first Jones Act compliant wind turbine installation vessel, WTIV, installed the wind turbines. Construction on a third is underway. Turbines will be turned on gradually throughout the rest of the year. The project is scheduled to finish in early 2027. Dominion Energy became the first of 5 offshore wind projects to sue the Trump administration after the U.S. Department of the Interior ordered the projects, which were all then under construction, to stop offshore work on December 22nd. On January 16th, a federal judge issued an order granting Dominion Energy's request for a preliminary injunction allowing construction to resume while the company's lawsuit against the Trump administration's Interior Department moves forward. Ultimately, all 5 offshore wind farms got court-ordered green lights to resume construction. CVOW started with a price tag of $9.8 billion. The cost has risen to $11.5 billion, thanks to the Trump administration's tariffs and its December stop work order. When coastal Virginia offshore wind is fully online, it will produce enough electricity to power 660,000 homes, and it is anticipated to save customers $3 billion during its first decade of operations. And up next we have Hawaii tests asphalt made with recycled plastics and fishing nets for shredding. From phys.org, Hawaii has a plastics problem. The island state faces economic and logistical challenges in recycling plastic waste, including marine debris that lingers in its ocean waters. Researchers in Hawaii are pioneering a method to recycle the island's derelict fishing nets and residential plastic trash into asphalt roads. Early demonstrations show that these recycled materials may provide a viable end-of-life fate for the region's garbage. Jeremy Axworthy, a researcher at the Center for Marine Debris Research, CMDR, at Hawaii Pacific University, will present the team's results at the spring meeting of the American Chemical Society, ACS. ACS Spring 2026 is being held March 22nd to 26th. It features nearly 11,000 presentations on a range of science topics. This work investigates whether it's responsible to use recycled plastics in Hawaii's roads, shares Axworthy. By reusing plastic waste that is already in Hawaii, we can reduce the environmental and economic impacts of transporting waste plastics from the islands, incinerating it, or dumping it in Hawaii's overflowing landfills. Since 2020, Hawaii's roads have predominantly been paved with polymer-modified asphalt to increase pavement strength and durability. Compared to standard asphalt pavement, PMA pavement is more elastic and more resistant to cracking, rutting, and water damage, qualities that are especially important for the state's tropical climate. PMA pavement is made by first melting pellets of styrene, butadiene styrene, SBS, a type of copolymer, into a sticky petroleum-based asphalt binder. Then the PMA binder is tumbled with heated aggregates, rocks, and sand in a mixing drum, causing the PMA binder to fully coat the aggregates. But why not see if discarded plastics could be incorporated into asphalt pavements as an environmentally friendly disposal option? How would modified pavements made with recycled plastics perform, and would they release microplastics or associated chemicals into the environment? These are the questions that the Hawaii Department of Transportation, HDOT, aimed to answer when they reached out to environmental chemist Jennifer Lynch, CMDR director and team lead. HDOT asked Lynch's team for 2 things. The first was to provide derelict fishing nets removed from Hawaii's marine environment for the creation of recycled plastic modified asphalt pavements. Foreign plastic derelict fishing gear is the largest contributor of Hawaii's marine debris problem, shares Lynch. To date, CMDR's Bounty Project, which pays a financial reward to licensed commercial fishers for marine debris removal, has removed 84 tons of large derelict fishing gear from the Pacific Ocean. That was actually in either our first or second episode. We did that article. Look, it came back. Full circle moment, everyone. Full circle moment. HDOT's second request was to measure possible microplastic shedding from pavements made with plastic waste versus that from standard SBS modified pavement. CMDR's laboratory is equipped with state-of-the-art chemical instrumentation for quantifying and characterizing microplastics in environmental samples, explains Lynch. This capability is incredibly unique and impactful, especially when coupled with our marine debris removal project and our mission to recycle the debris into long-term, locally necessary infrastructure projects. Once a U.S.-based company converted the waste into products that could be incorporated into asphalt, HDOT took the experimental asphalt mixes to Hawaii's streets. A local paving company laid down sections of a residential road on the island of Oahu with asphalt pavement containing standard SBS, repurposed polyethylene from Honolulu's recycling containers, and polyethylene from fishing nets. After about 11 months of regular traffic usage, Lynch's team stepped in to collect road dust samples from each section of pavement to test for microplastic shedding, which could contaminate the surrounding soil. Researchers processed the road dust using a method that separates different types of polymers from other materials in the dust, including microplastics, larger chunks of plastic, and tire rubber. Using pyrolysis gas chromatography mass spectrometry, PyGCMS, They identified and measured the source of the polymers, styrene and butadiene from the standard PMA polyethylene from the plastic waste and fishing net PMA, and isoprene and butadiene rubber from tires. Initial tests showed that pavements made with recycled polyethylene did not release more polymers than the control pavement made with SBS. Litch's team showed this was true during mechanical performance tests with pavement samples, as well as in simulated stormwater collected from the experimental road sections. Microplastic-sized particles were detected, but very few of these were identified as polyethylene regardless of the pavement type tested. This is likely because the polymers were melted into the asphalt binder, meaning particles that break off are not plastic alone, they are a mixture of rock binder and melted polymer chains. The CMDR team is also comparing the amount of polymers shed from the pavement into the amount of polymers shed by tires in the road dust. In our initial Pi GCMS data, we saw tire wear swamps the signal of polyethylene by orders of magnitude, like gigantic peaks. We had to search the weeds of the chromatogram to find signs of polyethylene. Additional research is needed to assess pavement durability, but the researchers are hopeful that someday repurposing used plastics into pavement could help reduce landfill and marine debris in Hawaii. Some people think plastic recycling is a hoax, that it doesn't work. It's too challenging, Lynch shares. But this work demonstrates that recycling can work when society prioritizes sustainability. I still don't know that plastic inside the roads is the best option, but if it keeps it out of the water. All right, our next article is How iNaturalist app users have fun while aiding science. From CBSNews.com, we share our planet with maybe 10 million species of plants, animals, birds, fish, fungi, and bugs. And to help identify them, millions of people are using a free phone app. Currently, we have about 6 million people using the platform every month, said Scott Laurie, the executive director of iNaturalist, a nonprofit. Has anyone made a cool discovery using the app? It happens all the time, said Laurie. Almost every month we get a new species described. One of his favorite stories involves someone in the Andes whose cabin was invaded by a weasel. He grabs his camera, the first ever photographs of these species, and they happen to be sitting on a toilet in his cabin. I'm very proud to say that toilet weasel was trending on Twitter after that. But it turns out that this app has a stealth function. It can share your photos with scientists. It has a date, it has a location, says Laurie. It turns out that most data for most species on the planet now is coming from this little app. So far, iNaturalist fans have made 300 million sightings in all 197 countries, providing data on hundreds of thousands of species a year. They let scientists see what's happening to life on Earth. The data can track the movements of invasive species over time, like the lanternfly, which came from China and is now taking over the US East Coast. But it's not just about species moving, it's about species disappearing. The best predictions now are that we're going to lose about 1 in 3 by the end of the century, Laurie said. But should we care about obscure species that we've never heard about in the first place? The analogy I like is that the Earth is this plane, that we're in mid-flight. Laurie replied, every time a species goes extinct, that's like us popping a rivet off. So at some point, the whole wing is going to fall off, but we don't exactly know which rivet, which species extinction is going to drive that. So the first thing we need to do is stop popping rivets off. This app is especially fun to use with other people. We intended a BioBlitz, a friendly timed competition where teams set out to see who can find the most species in the span of 1 hour. This one was being hosted by someone who knows a lot about nature, Martha Stewart, at her home in Bedford, New York. In 1 hour, our little group had identified 458 different species. Laurie reviewed some of the findings with Stewart. Beautiful little moth right here, this little assassin bug, different kinds of snails and butterflies. Each one of these observations will give us a snapshot of all the different plants and animals that are here and the kind of habitat that you've provided for all these species on your farm. For Laurie, it never gets old. People go like, wow, I'm actually part of the solution. By me taking this photo, I'm helping science. I'm helping us protect these species that I share the planet with. Martha Stewart would agree, though maybe she didn't need the app because she knew every bug and leaf. But that's because I've lived here now for more than 20 years, she laughed. And yet the app really teaches me the botanical names, the biological names of the bugs, and the butterflies. I learn something new every day. Always nice to see a Martha Stewart sighting in the wild. Anonymous donor gives $1 million to hospital nurses to pay off student debt. From local12.com, an anonymous donation is helping nurses at Bryn Mawr Hospital reduce student loan debt, hospital officials said. The funds will provide grants to eligible nurses at the Montgomery County Hospital, part of Mainline Health. Officials said the gift is part of a broader effort across the health system to ease financial burdens for frontline workers. We were thrilled to come together and celebrate the impact of an anonymous gift, said Ed Jimenez, president and CEO of Mainline Health, in a statement to Becker's Hospital Review. According to WPVI, hospital officials said the Bryn Mawr gift follows similar donations across Mainline Health facilities, bringing total contributions for nursing debt relief to more than $4 million. Thinking of everything that's happened with COVID-19, it's just amazing somebody would take their time to give back to the medical staff like this. Aaliyah Hall, a Mainline Health nurse for 4 years, said to the news outlet, I am just overwhelmed with gratefulness for whoever donated this money. Definitely a blessing to everyone. At Bryn Mawr, 173 nurses have been approved for grants of up to $3,600 each, with additional funding expected to be available in future rounds, WPVI reports. The Bryn Mawr Hospital donor has said many times that they are getting more joy out of this than anybody else, said Cinda Johnson, executive director of Bryn Mawr Hospital Foundation. A soothing study session, students cram in Amsterdam's Concertgebouw as musicians play. From the stage of Amsterdam's historic concert hall, violinist Hyun Jin Cho and cellist Estradia Chalulaku look out over row after row of young faces illuminated by the glow of laptop screens. The plush red seats of the Concertgebouw's main auditorium are occupied by students cramming for upcoming exams and finishing dissertations as classical music fills the hall. The students aren't being rude by ignoring the musicians. At this event, they're meant to be studying, and the music is intended to assist rather than distract them. The study sessions were first organized during COVID-19 pandemic by Entree, the youth association of the Concertgebouw, to help students improve their concentration and introduce them to the charms of classical music. They have been a hit ever since. During a recent session, musicians played German composer Johann Pachelbel's Canon in D, some Handel and Schubert, and even a little movie music from Studio Ghibli animation films for good measure. The sounds filled a space whose walls are decorated with the gilded names of famous composers from Ravel to Mahler, Wagner to Mozart. The music helped 21-year-old Kira Mulder focus on a project for occupational therapy degree at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. It's actually very calming and helping and concentrating on the work that we have to do, which is something that surprises me because normally I don't really listen to classical music, Mulder said. So that's a new experience for me. As the musicians played, more students wandered into the concert hall, some clutching cups of coffee along with their computers and books that they proceeded to perch on their laps. Signs advertised the password of the venue's free Wi-Fi network. A ticket for the session is just €2.5. It's one of the many ways to welcome younger audiences to the Concertgebouw, said the venue's general director, Simon Reining. And it's such an inspiring place to study with great music in this wonderful, beautiful environment. He hopes the event will help visitors study, but also inspire a new generation to appreciate classical music and return for more. It's one of the ways to more or less seduce younger audiences to discover the Concertgebouw, and hopefully they will be enthusiastic and they will come back, Reining said. Professor Bas Blom, a neurologist at the Radboud University Medical Center in the Dutch city of Nijmegen, says that while music can disturb some people's concentration, it can help others focus. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and I don't think it's been well researched, but I think the reason why music in the background can be so soothing almost, that it creates a state of flow, he told the Associated Press. Next up, discarded oyster shells may pull rare earth metals from polluted water. From phys.org, again. New research from a team at Trinity College Dublin has unearthed a cheap and environmentally friendly new option for moving pollutants from our water. The key? Oyster shells that would ordinarily end up in landfill sites after consumption. The research just published in the journal Science of the Total Environment shows that waste seashells, especially those from oysters, can capture and remove rare earth elements from polluted water. And what's more, they do it entirely naturally, turning them into stable mineral crystals. What are rare earth elements and why are they increasingly problematic? Rare earth elements are essentially components of modern technologies, from wind turbines and electric vehicles to smartphones, but their extraction and processing creates environmental risks when these metals leak into water systems. They're also at the center of growing geopolitical tensions as global supply is heavily concentrated in a few countries and demand for these strategic materials continues to increase. If released into rivers or lakes, rare earth elements can accumulate in aquatic ecosystems and disrupt microorganisms, plants, and animals. Finding simple and sustainable ways to remove rare earth elements from water is therefore an increasingly urgent environmental challenge. I think I was speeding up there. God, I got into it. What have the researchers discovered? In lab experiments, the team exposed crushed shells, mussels, oysters, to solutions containing rare earth elements. They discovered that the shells can trigger a chemical reaction such that the minerals in the shells dissolve and are replaced by new minerals containing the rare earth elements. In effect, the shells act as a template that converts dissolved metals into solid mineral crystals that remain locked inside the shell material. Among the minerals tested, oyster shells performed particularly well. Their natural microstructure allows the chemical reaction to continue deeper into the shell, capturing significantly more rare earth elements than other shells. The results suggest that shell waste could potentially be used as a low-cost and environmentally friendly material to help treat contaminated water or even recover valuable metals from industrial streams. What is the impact of this work? Dr. Rémi Rateau from Trinity's School of Natural Sciences, who is first author of the study, said, among the most exciting elements of the discovery that relatively small amounts of shell waste could remove substantial qualities of rare earth metals from contaminated water, meaning a genuine, tangible impact that could be created with as little as a few kilograms of oyster shells. Every year, the global aquaculture industry generates millions of tons of shell waste, much of which is discarded or sent to landfill, so repurposing this waste could instead offer both an environmental cleanup tool and a sustainable recycling pathway. Dr. Juan Diego Rodriguez Blanco, Trinity School of Natural Sciences and principal investigator of the project, added, what makes this discovery particularly promising is that the process is entirely mineral-driven. The shells naturally transform dissolved rare earth elements into new solid minerals, so this isn't a process that is difficult to drive or one that requires much financial outlay or technical equipment. By understanding how these reactions work, we can start designing low-cost, environmentally friendly strategies to remove critical metals from contaminated waters while also giving new value to a major waste product. Next up, EU Parliament wants to ban Nudifier apps. Developments in AI often outpace legislation. This is particularly evident with so-called Nudifier apps, which use generative AI to create realistic-looking nude images from ordinary photos in the form of deepfakes. The EU Parliament voted by an overwhelming majority on Thursday that such systems should be banned in the future if they generate sexually explicit content without the consent of the depicted individuals. 569 MEPs voted in favor, 45 against, and 23 abstained. The initiative is part of a comprehensive positioning by MEPs on the so-called digital omnibus regulation. People's representatives aim for a practical adaptation of the AI regulation. To give companies more planning security, Parliament is proposing an adjustment of the deadlines in the AI app. High-risk AI systems used in biometrics, education, or law enforcement, for example, should only be subject to the full requirements from December 2nd, 2027. For AI applications in the area of general product safety, August 2028 is even being discussed. Protection against misuse and more transparency. However, Parliament remains unyielding on the digital integrity of the individual. The planned ban on denuding AI directly targets providers like Elon Musk's Grok, horrid app, whose software is misused to digitally degrade women and children. The only exceptions to this ban would be systems with effective technical security barriers that prevent the generation of such defects. In addition, MEPs are pushing for the labeling requirement for AI content by November 26 to make its origin transparent. With the outlined tightening measures, MEPs are reacting to a wave of digital sexual violence. Prominent cases like that of moderator Colleen Fernandez illustrate the destructive power of the technology. She fell victim to such AI manipulations and was confronted with deceptively real but fake nude images online. This served as a warning in the parliamentary debate about how quickly technological playthings can escalate into massive blackmail and psychological violence. Despite much agreement on these protective measures, resistance is mounting against other parts of the package. The TUV Association, for example, warns of a looming sectoral exit. Key high-risk areas such as medical devices, machinery, or toys are to be removed from the direct scope of the AI regulation and instead be regulated in individual sectoral laws. With the Parliament vote in line with the committee's recommendation, trilogue negotiations with the Council of Ministers can now begin to determine the final shape of the law. The EU states have already taken a similar position, which should allow for a swift agreement. Up next, listening to music for 24 minutes may ease anxiety. Study finds from medicalexpress.com. A short music session may help ease anxiety, and researchers say there's a sweet spot for how long to listen. A clinical trial found that listening to specially designed music for 24 minutes can significantly reduce anxiety symptoms. Music was paired with auditory beat stimulation, a type of sound pattern meant to influence brain activity. The study, led by researchers at Toronto Metropolitan University, included 144 adults with moderate anxiety. All were already taking medication to manage their symptoms. Researchers wanted to see whether listening to music with ABS could offer extra relief and how long people needed to listen to get better results. Participants were divided into 4 groups. Each group listened to a different type or length of sound. Pink noise for 24 minutes used as a control, music with ABS for 12 minutes, music with ABS for 24 minutes, and music with ABS for 36 minutes. Before and after listening, participants completed tests to measure anxiety and mood. Compared with pink noise, which sounds like a waterfall, rain, or ocean waves, the results showed that music with ABS helps reduce both cognitive and physical symptoms of anxiety. Examples of cognitive symptoms include uncontrollable thoughts and trouble concentrating, while physical symptoms may manifest as nausea or chest pain. People also reported feeling less negative after listening to music with ABS. 24-minute sessions showed the strongest overall results. It worked just as well as the 36-minute session and better than the 12-minute version. What we're seeing is a dose-response pattern where about 24 minutes of music with ABS seems to be the sweet spot, said study co-author Frank Russo, psychology professor at Toronto Metropolitan University. It's long enough to meaningfully shift anxiety levels, but not so long that listeners need to carve out a large block of time. He added in a news release, anxiety affects millions of people worldwide. Researchers said common treatments include medication and therapy, but these options can take time, cost money, or cause side effects. Researchers say music-based tools could offer a simple, low-cost way to help manage symptoms. The study was recently published in the journal PLOS Mental Health. A South African reserve shows how carbon can catalyze rewilding conservation. News.mongabay.com. At the Tswalu Kalahari Reserve, South Africa, from a high on a promontory in the Koranenberg Mountains, a mountain zebra peers down to the west across the green dappled plain below. The rising sun behind. In the distance, wild dogs hunt in the veld, burdened after early rains, and nearby white rhinos graze among thorny thickets. These species and a dozen more persist here thanks to a decades-long effort to rewild a sliver of South Africa's great desert and dry savanna. The Tsulu Kalahari Reserve has become a sanctuary for rare and threatened animals, drawing in a steady stream of well-heeled tourists from around the globe. More recently, the reserve's managers have embarked on a quest to increase the carbon stored in its soils, a quest that relies heavily on the reserve's animals. At first glance, places like Tswalu might not seem suited for stockpiling carbon. The Swana people call this part of the world Kagalagadi, the waterless place. Physical precipitation in the Kalahari averages a scant 10 to 50 centimeters, 4 to 20 inches annually, and much less in some years. That means the comparative lushness here in late 2025 could evaporate if the rains don't carry on throughout the austral summer of the southern hemisphere. To date, most nature-based carbon storage efforts have focused on fast-growing tropical forests, adding native or plantation tree cover that draws carbon out of the atmosphere. Soil carbon, by contrast, is slower to accumulate, and it's more laborious and expensive to monitor. But globally, soil holds roughly 3 times as much terrestrial carbon as forests and other above-ground vegetation. There's value in leveraging carbon the hard way with the help of science, says Matthew Child, CEO and co-founder of the Carbon Biodiversity Project developer Rewild Capital. Rewild Capital is partnering with Tswalu for its carbon project. Child and like-minded scientists contend that carbon stored in the forest is more susceptible to being lost as a result of clearance or fires. Soil, meanwhile, has the potential to be a more durable climate solution. The disturbance regime. Swana and other peoples of the Kalahari have long adapted to the whims of the harsh landscape, but climate challenge driven overwhelmingly by the use of fossil fuels in industrialized, wealthy countries has exacerbated the severity of its temperatures and droughts. As a result, the Kalahari is more vulnerable to degradation, for example, from livestock overgrazing, and its soils hold less carbon. The Oppenheimer family, which built its fortune on South Africa's gold and diamond mines, acquired Tswalu in 1999 and continued from previous owners' model of buying up adjoining land from farmers and restoring it for conservation. The reserve is now about the size of Hong Kong at 118,000 hectares, 292,000 acres. Child and others suggest that allowing places like Tswalu to recover and managing the presence of wildlife that have co-evolved with Kalahari's sparse vegetation could reawaken long-dormant dynamics in worn-out landscapes. Rewilding is not just about putting the original species back into place, Child says. It's about restoring the disturbance regime. As paradoxical as it might seem, the movement of hooved herbivores over the land can elevate densities of carbon in the soil, and instigated by a complex waltz of chemical reactions driven by soil-dwelling microbes. The right balance, proponents say, the great herds carry the potential to restore not only biodiversity, but also the resilience of delicate landscapes in an uncertain future of a warmer world. Arid lands that are the place where we are going to be feeling it the most, but where we can get the greatest returns, says Duncan McFadden, the head of research and conservation at a consortium of businesses and nonprofits called Oppenheimer Generations that represent the interests of its namesake family. I think Swallow shows how rewilding can mitigate climate change through soil carbon storage and improve land productivity. And that is the end of this week's articles. Hopefully, they added a little positive joy to your life. Before we end, I have our final segment of the show, something I like to call a tale of two paragraphs. In this segment, I take the first and last paragraph from an article on Substack or another similar source and read them to you to encourage you to go read the article yourself. Many people forget the power of the written word to move us and how intriguing the middle of the story is. The less I read, the better, but people often want to know how we got to endings more than the ending themselves, and maybe then you will go exploring the Substack and read the paragraphs in between. This week's article is from Substack entitled, I stumbled across my boyfriend's ChatGPT and it ended our relationship. It comes from Lindsay Hall. Her paragraphs are short, so more than one is included for clarity. I find out my now ex-boyfriend had been questioning his feelings and attraction to me in the most dystopian, laughably modern way possible. ChatGPT. Laid on his couch, midnight on a Friday, I was working late as he snoozed blissfully on my shoulder when my phone died in the heat of a client exchange. Shit, I mumbled. Pivoting, I grabbed his laptop off the floor to run my final fatigued, glassy-eyed client response through AI. As I powered his computer, his ChatGPT almost poetically was already front and center on the screen. As I copied and pasted my email, I peered to the left side of the screen, and that's when I saw it in the sidebar, a past chat titled Relationship Issues and Uncertainty. A few paragraphs in between, and an ending of, in the end, I had wandered by accident into the back office of his love for me and found the paperwork, the doubts, the calculations, the small private notations beside my name. Maybe this is ordinary. Maybe all love looks less romantic under fluorescent light. But after that, I could not return to the front of the house and pretend I had not seen the ledger. Find out more musings from Lindsay, as well as photos of her cat and more insights on life at lindsayhallwrites.substack.com. We hope you enjoyed our show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, so I won't. Have a good day.